anticipated battle for 4 states and 1 union territory is just around the corner. And one of those exciting battles is the one for the state of Kerala, where traditionally power swaps between the LDF and the UDF every 5 years. By that calculation, it's the turn of the UDF. But this time round, perhaps this Congress-led alliance cannot take things for granted. The battle for Kerala has also become interesting, with veteran Congress leader PC Chacko quitting just ahead of the state polls. So to speak to us today on the assembly elections in Kerala, in all the 4 states and 1 union territory and national politics, I'm joined by Congress Member of Parliament, Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Tharoor, thank you so much for speaking with us here on ET Now. I will ask you to address first the news of the day, which is veteran Congress leader from Kerala, PC Chacko, resigning, saying there is no democracy in Kerala Congress. How do you respond to these charges?
Well, I think you really will have to ask PC Chacko himself why he said that. He's somebody I've known throughout my time in politics, and I think that he's somebody who's held a lot of responsible positions in the party, most recently as the General Secretary covering Delhi. Earlier, I remember when we were in Parliament together, he was the chairman of the JPC on this whole telecoms controversy. So he's a man who's had some very senior responsibilities. And I think it's obviously to do with his own current concerns or predilections that only he can explain. It's difficult to suggest that this is somebody who has not had a prominent, visible and influential role in the party over the years, which is therefore, I think, an indication of his current state of mind rather than of his overall experience of the Congress party.
Do you think it will dent the prospects of your party in the state elections? And is there any reality to what he's saying in terms of different camps within the Congress in Kerala?
Well, within Kerala, there has long been a tradition of a couple of groups. This is a historical fact emerging from the time when the party had split during Indira Gandhi's day. And at that time, when the two split wings of the Congress came together again, a certain tradition of, shall we say, groupism, if that's the word you want to use, persisted. But they are always united during elections. They fight together as one party. The groupism, as Mr. Chacko was implying, does sometimes affect things like ticket distribution and positions within the party structure. But at the same time, what we're hearing now very clearly from all the Congress party leaders, including the leaders of the two groups, is that the Congress party is only going to go by winnability. You know, one of the criticisms that was made against the Congress party in Kerala during the last local self-government elections was that group allocations, that is, that some seats were reserved for one group and some seats for another group, trumped winnability considerations, and that winnable candidates were not nominated because they belonged to the wrong group. That kind of thing will not happen now. That's the assurance that all of us have from the leadership of the party, and particularly, as I said, both groups have signed on to the message that winnability is all that matters today.
Yeah. What about the impact of this on the prospects of the party? I asked that question as well. Do you think Mr. Chacko's resignation will impact the party negatively in the elections?
No, to be very honest, I think that in every party, just before elections, there is some flux, some coming and going. The CPM has witnessed some rather dramatic resignations as well, including some candidates literally going overnight from being CPM potential candidates to being NDA candidates. So all sorts of things like that have happened. And I don't think, frankly, that's unprecedented. I think there will be a bit of flux. There will certainly be those who are individual admirers of a particular leader will always be disenchanted if he moves aside or she moves aside. But the truth is that for the overall consideration, two things really matter, Tamanna. One is the message of the party. What is the track record it's running on, and what are the promises it's making for the future? And the second thing, the quality of the individual candidates. Keralites are a fairly sophisticated electorate. They want to know who is going to represent them and who is going to uh, serve their needs as constituents. And if they are inspired by a particular candidate in their area, they will often overlook statewide issues or broader political issues. Though it's also true that there is a fair, strong party loyalty culture amongst a good chunk of the electorate. It is often said that perhaps even half the votes in Kerala will go according to party loyalty, and the other half will be focused on the quality of the individual candidate. So those are the kinds of considerations that I believe will be more valuable than worrying about individual leaders' presence or absence.
Let me come to the question of the upcoming elections. Now, there is a trend, as I said in my opening, in Kerala that power switches every 5 years. Some surveys have been put out recently, and quite a few of them suggest that the LDF government in power currently could end up bucking that trend this time around, and the UDF finds itself on a weaker wicket. What do you have to say to these? And do you think factors like COVID-19, etc., may have changed the entire situation in Kerala this time around?
Tamanna, I've seen the polls that you're referring to, but the information I have is that most of those polls were conducted in January or early February. And as the former British Prime Minister Harold Wilson famously said, a week is a long time in politics. Some weeks have gone by since voters were asked their views and preferences, and now 4 crucial weeks remain before voting takes place on the 6th of April. So we are looking at a very decisive period in the election campaign. I agree with you, it's going to be close. I don't think that it's going to be the kind of slam dunk election where every incumbent government has been turfed out by the electorate time after time, almost as a matter of routine for 45 years now. Every government has failed to be re-elected. That may not be something that we can take for granted this time. We will have to fight hard, but we certainly believe that the UDF can win. There is a tremendous amount of confidence amongst the leaders I've spoken to. As recently as this morning, we had a gathering of the Congress MPs with the state leadership who were here, and the unanimous feeling of optimism that I got from people who are very much in touch with grassroots sentiment was incredibly encouraging. There are many issues. There is certainly, as you mentioned, the pandemic, but that cuts both ways, because while the government can claim some credit for efficiently handling the pandemic in the early stages, it does not get good marks for its subsequent handling, particularly when non-resident Keralites and non-resident Indians from the Gulf countries started coming back. The government, despite all its talk of having created an effective infrastructure, proved unable, sadly, to be able to curb the spread of the disease. And there was a period as late as September, October, when we had the record number of cases. And in fact, as late as about a month ago, it was being said that 50% of the cases emerging in India were emerging in Kerala. Now that's gone down a bit, partially because it's gone up elsewhere, in places elsewhere in the country. But I will say, therefore, that COVID alone cannot be automatically a victory for the state government, because there is bad news as well as good. There are other factors, undoubtedly the corruption scandals in which the state government has been embroiled, scandals reaching all the way up to the CM's office, have undoubtedly caused considerable disquiet. And then there are sort of issues that became extremely controversial during the time of this government, such as the Shabarimala issue and the unpopular stand adopted by the state government when they were trying to deal with that, where indeed a lot of popular sentiment turned against the government. And finally, there will be local issues. It's not as if the government's performance has been all that satisfactory. So that there will be local issues in which effective candidates can point out to deficiencies in governance. So for all of these reasons, I'm not prepared to at all say that these polls have already given the election to the ruling party. I believe, and I'm inspired by what I heard in today's meeting of MPs and Congress leaders, that the UDF, which is the Congress-led United Democratic Front, remains very confident and very, very upbeat about this coming election. You may remember just a week ago, there was this huge flurry because a respected technocrat like Mr. Sridharan had announced his joining the fray on behalf of the BJP. When I was asked, I said, I know and respect Mr. Sridharan as a technocrat, but politics is a totally different ballgame. And I honestly don't think it's going to make any impact beyond the announcement, because I remember when I joined politics in my early 50s, I thought I had left it too late. What can I say about somebody trying to join politics at 88? I think that Mr. Sridharan would probably discover that that politics is not quite the same thing as executing a project efficiently. Engineering and politics are very different worlds.
So let's keep Mr. Sridharan aside, because you've said that earlier as well, and it's been widely quoted. But I want to ask you what you think about BJP being in the fray. As of now, projections are that they're not going to quite make any sort of a mark. But are they steadily gaining? Are issues like Sabrimala that you mentioned before working in the favor of the BJP? Are issues like love jihad that they're bringing up beginning to resonate? Or are you seeing the BJP, at least in Kerala so far, as a complete non-starter? Are they a threat on the horizon?
No, BJP is literally a non-starter in that they have one seat out of 140 seats in the state assembly, and they're going to be hard-pressed to hold on to that one seat, let alone to multiply that by 2 or 3, which is what they can, at the very, very best in their fantasies, hope to do. The main damage the BJP can do is they've gone from about a chronically sort of 5-6% party to a 13-14% party, and they're hoping to push it to a 15-16% party. As you know, at that percentage level, it's very difficult to win anywhere, but you could tilt the election away from the party whose votes you are eating into. And clearly, they are more likely to cut into the votes of the UDF than the LDF, the communist voters. And this is something which normally would result in us being more wary of the BJP than the left. But when I see the BJP and the NDA grabbing onto left politicians and making them their candidates, I no longer know really what the BJP thinks it stands for. As for Sabrimala, the issue has hurt BJP rather than helped it, because it was very evident that even though BJP was in power in the center, they had not done anything to help the worshippers in Sabrimala to be able to preserve the traditions of Sabrimala. So those who were at the forefront of the agitation were demanding what from whom? They were justified in criticizing the state government, but not one finger was lifted by anybody in the central government, either to submit a review petition to the Supreme Court, or to argue the case, or to pass either a law or an ordinance that would have restored the status quo ante in Sabrimala and prevented the state government from doing what it was doing. So it became very apparent that the BJP was merely milking the Sabrimala issue for short-term political gain, and in the process converting a holy site into a theater for political drama, rather than actually trying to resolve the issue, whereas the UDF has consistently taken a very focused, constructive line. We presented the private members' bill to the parliament. We have urged a specific legislative amendments. We have now committed publicly that if we come to power, we will pass a law in Kerala that would respect the traditions of our most sacred shrines. And the truth about all of this is that the BJP has been caught napping. So to suggest that Sabrimala will help the BJP in Kerala, I think overlooks the fact that anybody who thinks 2 minutes about how do you solve the problem rather than merely creating a hue and cry knows that the BJP has not even lifted a finger to solve the problem, even while enjoying power in Delhi and being able to do something about it. I remember when I contested in 2019 for the Lok Sabha, my BJP opponents
the question is of
asked for votes on the same issue. And I pointed out, what can you do after winning this election that you couldn't do today when you guys are in power? And they had no answer.
But, Mr. Tharoor, I must ask you, this is the position that you have taken as a leader from Kerala. This is the position the UDF has taken. But personally, do you really believe and stand behind the position that women should not be allowed into Sabrimala after a Supreme Court order has given them the right to?
No, Tamanna, this is an issue on which I think many are very familiar with the thinking that I went through, because I went through it very publicly. Initially, I had indeed welcomed the decision. Then, when I saw the reaction of the public, I went into a month of silence, during which all I did was research the issue and talk to people, particularly women. I talked to literally hundreds of women of the particular age group involved, of Hindu women, obviously Hindu believers. And I was startled to see that literally about 95% of the people I talked to said this is an offense to their beliefs. And the argument was a very interesting one, that from their point of view, the deity that they believed in Sabrimala, the whole Sabrimala concept, implied that the most important attribute of the deity in that particular temple was his celibacy, and that therefore, if they believed and worshipped that, they needed to wait until they had reached the age when they could go, which was after 50. And many women said this to me, women in their 30s. So I said, you prepared to wait 20 years? And they said, yes, it's our belief. They said the only women between 10 and 50 who will go to Sabrimala are people who don't believe it. So if they don't believe it, then why do they need to go at all? And that became an irrefutable argument. And then as I reflected on the matter, I realized, as the dissenting judge, Indu Malhotra, had pointed out, that religion has always had, unfortunately, different rules from civil society. America is not a country anybody can accuse of systematic gender discrimination. You can't open a golf club in America and say women can be members, but they cannot be office bearers. You will be taken to court and fined if you did that. But the Catholic Church in America says women can worship, but they cannot become priests and bishops. So you actually have a different rule, and the entire society accepts that in religion, there are different rules. And that's essentially what the worshippers in Sabrimala are saying, that our religious faith is beyond rational civil discourse. It is a matter of faith, and you must respect our faith. And I explained all this when I changed and articulated the position I did. It's not that I am a very passionate defender of women's rights, but this is only about religious belief and faith, nothing else. And if you believe, the paradox is, if you believe in this particular temple deity, you will not go to it until you have reached the permissible age. If you believe in Ayyappan, you can always go to worship in 500 Ayyappa temples elsewhere in Kerala. But the Sabrimala deity has a specific sanctified tradition. And until the believers are prepared to change the tradition, I don't think that a civil institution can overrule the rights of the religions. Imagine tomorrow our Supreme Court, by the same logic, says no, women have an equal right to become priests in the Catholic faith. What will happen? We'll have tremendous unrest with our Catholic believers. There's similar prohibitions of different sorts in every religion. By the way, Hinduism has at least 8 temples where men are not allowed into the sanctum sanctorum, because they're specifically goddess temples with their own traditions. This is how religion works. And, if you're not a believer, difficult to understand and appreciate it. But if we are going to show respect for religion, then we better accept this rule as well.
I want to come to you, Mr. Tharoor, on the question of the Congress party in a larger picture on the national scale. And I think as we go into these 5 state elections, that's an important question as well. The Congress, in a solo way, is not at the forefront. You're with the DMK in Tamil Nadu, of course, in Kerala as part of an alliance, and in West Bengal with the left. How crucial is your performance in these set of elections going to be at a time when you're facing so much internal dissent? It's not just Mr. Chacko. You have the G23, very senior veteran Congress leaders raising questions about inner party democracy. Is this an inflection point for the Congress?
Look, Tamanna, I myself am one of those who signed the letter to the Congress president about the need for improvements in the way we're functioning, but this is not an act of dissent. It's a desire to see the Congress party strengthened. And in this, every signatory that I know or have spoken to remains totally united, Tamanna. The message very clearly is that we want to see the Congress succeed. We want to see the Congress flourish. We're all congressmen dedicated to strengthening the party. There's not one person I'm aware of who doesn't want to see the Congress win these state elections and won't work actively for that. Speaking for myself, I've already been very busy in Kerala for the last month, and I will be very active there in the next few weeks, even at the cost of my rather good attendance record in Parliament. I'll have to miss Parliament to do this. So I don't see any risk of fissures within the party in pursuing victory, because we all want the party to win. Those who have expressed, and frankly, I don't think there's anything formal called the G23. That term is a media invention, but the people who signed the letter and the many others who agreed with the letter but didn't have a chance to sign it because of COVID-era lockdown restrictions, I think they all would be unanimous in saying we want to have a strong Congress to stand up against the behavior of this government, the very dangerous policies and actions of the BJP in power, and therefore all we want to see is how do we get the Congress to win. Now, if the Congress is embracing these various views, then I think you will find that there is no question of talking about any dissent. But whether or not the party, which is, as you know, having an AICC session only in June, agrees with this approach or not, all of us are determined to see the party win. And I was entrusted with manifesto consultations in Kerala, where I went around the districts talking to people about what they hope to see in a UDF government, or what they hope to see the Congress doing for them if we came to power. I'm going to be continuing. I've been requested to campaign throughout the state for candidates. And of course, in my own constituency, I have 7 candidates whom I want to see win. So there's no question of any dissent from the Congress's overall message, which is one of inclusive India, and an India that we hope will revert to the best and finest qualities of our democracy that were respected and hailed around the world.
Yes, but how is that going to happen with the current situation? The party, and you, I'm sure you will admit this as well, Mr. Tharoor, is just looking more lost, clueless, and weak. The leadership issue has not been resolved yet. It is not clear what the next steps are, whether any preparations for 2024 are underway. There is just an air of listlessness around whatever the party really does. Let me give an example of what has happened in Haryana today. There's a no confidence motion which Mr. Khattar's government has won. So is there a plan? There seems to be no plan, and can there be one until the leadership issue is resolved?
Well, look, on the leadership issue, as you know, the party has grappled with it. They had a working committee discussion that decided that there would be a leadership, shall we say, session of the AICC on the leadership in June. The election results are out on the 2nd of May. They might even advance the AICC to later in May. I don't know. But the point is that the idea that once these elections are out of the way, we will grapple with the question of organizational matters has already been settled. I don't see any purpose in, frankly, as a congressman, in distracting my party from the absolutely necessary focus on the current elections. Right now, all of us agree, whether we disagree with each other on certain questions of the way in which the organization is running, that we want the Congress to win. And if you want the Congress to win, that means getting out there and absolutely doing our very best to ensure it. Now, as you rightly said, each of the 5 states has a different narrative. My focus is principally on Kerala, where we have an opportunity, I believe, to come back to power. We are doing very well even in these polls in Tamil Nadu. We've been, unfortunately, put into an awful position in Puducherry by the power of the ruling party's money, clearly, and some of the inducements that were offered to cause people to leave the party. In Bengal, we have staked out a certain position, and that's what the party is working on in alliance with a couple of others. And in Assam, we're very much in the fray. The last poll I saw, we were within 10% of the BJP's numbers in the poll. So I don't think that we are writing off the Congress in this round of assembly elections, Tamanna. If you are, I don't think you're being fair. Once the elections are over, let's all take stock, and then we can we can talk about it. But right now is hardly the time for us to be going around poking holes in our own efforts, when what we want to see is a united, effective, and victorious Congress.
Last question to you, Mr. Tharoor. Do you feel you've got your due within the party, especially when the leadership issue is brought up? There are so many names that do the rounds of who the next crop of leaders could be, to move away from just the Gandhi family and push away this, sort of attack that it's a party of dynasts, etc. And your name often crops up. Do you believe you've got your due within the party?
Tamanna, I am right now busy with two things. I'm chairman of the All India Professionals Congress, which has been a very important platform for professionals throughout the country. And during the lockdown era, arguably one of the more active units in the Congress party, because professionals are very comfortable doing a lot of work online, and they've been very energetic and busy. And the second thing I'm doing, as I told you, is to focus on the Kerala elections. At the moment, absolutely no other political thoughts about myself are engaging me whatsoever. I'm focused on these two tasks. They need to be done, and particularly in the next 4 weeks. I'm happy to address anything to do with the Kerala elections. I really don't have much to say about anything else. Let's come back together and talk when we have a victory to celebrate for the Congress party in Kerala. Thanks very much, Tamanna.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shashi Tharoor, for speaking with us today.
Thanks.